Okay, here we are. We're going to do a quick overview of the position to win system. The position to win system is something that was developed over decades by my mentor and business partner, John Paul Mendoza, which I took and honed and sifted and sorted and made even better to the age of the internet, because he is the analog guy and I'm the digital guy, and that's why we make a good team. So, but it is first of all a purely strategic series of layers of thinking about business. Because as our book is called, most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. It just takes them 3 to 5 years to realize it. Most of the time, most projects, most products, most ideas, they fail in the initial presuppositions, in the initial setup. And it just takes them 3 to 5 years of agonizing, slow, painful waste of capital, of savings, of investments, of all of that. For more information, if you want to go to positiontowinbook.com, positiontowinbook.com, you can find out more information about the release date, which is coming up very soon. We have an event in October in Las Vegas. It's called Shred Your Reality, and we're going to be talking about this over there too. Again, you can find out more on positiontowinbook.com, and also we have a podcast, so you can listen to us kind of go back and forth, talk about these concepts. But let's go the position to win system. Let's go through the different layers. So each one is a layer, and there are 7. So we call them the 7 aces, the 7 aces of position to win. So if you're playing poker, you want to have as many aces as you can, right? Now, if you have 7 aces and you happen to be playing poker with one deck, then just know or be sure that nobody else has a gun, and everything is going to be okay. But in business and in life, you can actually deal yourself aces. You can give yourself a better card, as opposed to, well, this is the cards that I got and that's it, right? Now, there's something to be said for playing the cards that you're dealt, yes, but not necessarily keeping them, right? In a poker match, if you have a bad hand, you fold, right? You don't go all in. That's not the right way of playing, okay? All right, so in the position to win system, we have 7 layers. The first one is positioning, which we talk a lot about. As a matter of fact, this whole book, if you look inside here, it says volume 1, the first ace. You might not be able to read that, but so this is what we talk about. We talk about the very first layer, which is positioning. And so positioning means that you know which position you occupy. Okay, are you first, are you second, or are you third, right? And if you're in a category, if you're in a business and you don't know which position you are, that's bad. And you always want to be number 1. Now, everybody wants to be number 1, but sometimes you can't be number 1 where you are, right? And so there's also a positioning strategy to being able to occupy a slightly different space, or to be able to be a good number 2, a good number 3, or even below, okay? And we're going to talk about that a little bit later, what that looks like. But if you don't know, so I had a doctor one time, he called me, he said, Gabe, I want to start my practice. I want to start general practice in this really hot city here in a suburb in Dallas. I said, great, and you want to start your practice there, why? He's like, Gabe, because there's a lot of money. There's a lot of money there. I said, all right, and so what kind of practice do you have? And he says, I'm a general practitioner. And I asked him, how many general practitioners are there in that suburb? He says, I have no idea, okay? So you need to know that. And he says, well, why would I need to know that? Because you're competing against them. That's why. So if you don't have a positioning strategy, if you don't have a good positioning statement, and we have a whole podcast just on positioning statements, if you want to invest money on somebody's business, if you want to know if somebody has a really good idea for a business, ask them, what is your positioning statement? And if it takes them more than 20 seconds, a minute to tell you what their positioning statement is, then that's not a good sign. That's not a good sign at all. Let me grab the green here, because I'm going to use it. Okay, so the next thing is the adoption curve. Now, this is the thing that it's basically a bell curve. So let me just do that, and it'll look like that. Okay? So the adoption curve describes the different segments of the market that are more or less tolerant to uncertainty. That's basically what it boils down. It's a psychographic profile way of dividing the people, right? I'll give you an example. Well, one of the businesses that I help run, or that I run. So we broke up a part of something that I was doing, and we turned that into an agency. Okay, and that agency supports a whole series of other things, of other projects. One of it is a band that it's very famous here, very popular here in the DFW, and it's a salsa band. It's a hot young salsa band. Okay, and so we do a lot of the stuff through the agency with them. And so basically we are trying to get people to buy tickets for events that we have, okay? Now, what is the adoption curve important? The adoption curve is important because we're trying to get people to buy tickets online, right? To pre-buy tickets online. And what we're finding out is where do we fit in the adoption curve? Are these guys savvy enough to buy tickets online? And then how many of them are there? Right? If you don't know where you fit in the adoption curve, you might think that your market is this size when in reality is this size. And if you don't know that, you will fail in the first 5 minutes and you won't even know it, right? Because the size of the market is actually not the size of the market. Also, the adoption curve influences which channels do you use for marketing, for example. What kinds of things you use for your sales process? Is it a one-on-one? Is it a group thing? Is it should you do a telemarketing or a teleseminar, right? Or should you do a webinar, right? Should you do a video sales letter? Should you use LinkedIn versus Snapchat versus Facebook versus Instagram versus Google Maps? All of that. That's the adoption curve. A lot to talk about there, and maybe we'll eventually write a book about that. The next thing is marketing postures. So now if you figure out what your positioning is, and you know where you fit in the adoption curve, and you can map that out and go, okay, this is my market. Based on that, then you can really establish what your posture is. And there are 4 fundamental postures. Okay? And I don't know if I'm going to have time, I probably don't have time to talk about each one of them. But there are 4 fundamental postures. And so the postures is the way in which you go and attack a market. So the way that you go and attack a market is different depending on your positioning and depending on the adoption curve. Okay? So and that is because, so if you think about it, if you read a book, let me see if I have one that's good here. Oh man. Okay, let me grab this one. So if you grab a book like this one, this is the McKinsey Mind. This is by McKinsey, the consulting organization, consulting company. They're the top consulting company. You read this and you look at what some big businesses do, real big businesses do, and you say to yourself, wow, I know what I'm going to do. That's what I have the idea, let me go implement that. Well, it may not work for you because you don't know what your posture is. You don't know that for somebody who's top dog, a particular mode of attack is effective, but if you are number 4, if you're somewhere else, this might not be effective. This might in fact be death. Okay? So marketing posture is very important. That's the 3rd layer of positioning. And these build on each other. Okay? So if you have positioning, it's like if you actually understand your positioning, and this is a powerful one to have. I mean, most businesses never get past this one. That's why we think this system is very, very, very powerful. And we have a whole online system. If you're interested in that, you can go to positiontowinbook.com and find about how to sign up for Position to Win system. And we go in depth into each one of these. We go for hours and we give exercises specific. But this is like real business stuff. This is not info marketer stuff. This is none of that, like real business stuff, which I don't think most people are ready for. But this is really information that we found nowhere else. That's why we decided to write a book. All right, so, and then again, like I said, these compound, right? So these are layers. So if you have a positioning statement, man, that's great. If you understand what your positioning is, and then you understand where you fit in the adoption curve, and then you understand what your marketing posture should be, then you define your green field. All right, your green field is that part where you're gonna go out and attack, and you have a spot. Because you understand the things above, now you understand what your green field is, and you can go out and get it. I'm president of one of the companies that we started, and I am like chief technology officer in another one. And we use these same things that we're telling people how to do. We use the same things. We take our own medicine to find these things, and we identify at least two. We have a potential third green field, and we're attacking it in a very specific way, because we know where these things fit, okay? Once you have that, you get to what John calls the layer cake. And now some people don't like the way that's called, but it's actually works just like a cake. And a cake has layers, okay? And when you cut it, you see it, and then it's got all the layers. So what the layer cake does, and this is the best way that I found it, and McKinsey actually uses something similar, but not quite as good, not quite as structured. The layer cake basically structures everything from the goals all the way to the tools. So if you think about, if you have a goal, if you have something to accomplish, now it can be like something fantastic. When we talk about a goal, I don't mean I'll have a yacht and travel the oceans. Okay, that's like a dream. So and that could be, I'm not saying that's bad, but not that ethereal, more concrete. So something like, we want to be able to dominate this market by having this much market share, okay? And then you define what that is. So once you have a goal, the goal lays or sits right here, right at the top here. Okay? And then you have a layer that lines all of these things up, okay? All the way from the goal. And so after you have a goal, then you have a strategy to accomplish the goal. And then the strategy gets broken up into tactics. And each tactic is supported by a series of techniques to be used, for tools to be used. So again, from the top to the bottom. Now from the bottom to the top, you have a series of tools that you bought to accomplish something. But you have to have the right techniques to use them. So buying the tool doesn't just automatically mean that you know how to use it, right? Or you can buy the tool, but then you need somebody that has the techniques, right? I have a piano right here, right? But just because I have a piano doesn't mean that it comes with knowledge of being able to play it. I'm able to play it, and that's good, but it took me a long time. But a lot of people have pianos and they don't know how to play because the tool doesn't equal the technique. So now you have the tools, and now you have the techniques to be able to use the tools. Now in which ways will you do it? Well, you're going to implement a series of tactics. Why? Why do you want to implement a series of tactics? Because you have a strategy. And why do you have a strategy? Because you're trying to reach a goal. And you see how it all lines up? And again, we go in depth into specific case scenarios, how to do this. And again, this is very powerful. If you get to this part, this is an amazing ace to have. Okay? And now we get to 6. 6 is talking about the inciting incident. Okay? So the inciting incident is the spark, is the fire, is the thing that makes it all work. So when you have a business, you have to understand, what is that fire? What is that spark that makes everything work? Because this is where your marketing is going to take place. So if you say to somebody, hey, I can do anything for anybody at any time, that's not hitting any inciting incident. You have to know, what is it that makes your people want to buy? What is it that makes your people take notice of what you have? What is it that wakes somebody up and says, yes, that's the right thing that I want, right? If you don't understand what your inciting incident is, then it doesn't much matter, because you're going to be wasting your money, wasting your time, because you're aiming at people, in fact, people who are never going to buy, who are never going to make that decision, who are always going to delay, and defer that success, okay? So once you have all of this, all these layers, we get to the bottom one. And the bottom one, we use blue. The bottom one is the sales funnel. So once we understand where our positioning is, we know where we live in the adoption curve, We know what our posture should be of attack. We have identified a green field that we can go for. Now, this is not always possible. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that anybody can do this. No, many times you don't. But many times you can harness this a little better. Then you can structure a layer cake so you know what you need to accomplish and what are the steps. What do you need? Where are all the blanks? You don't just go buying software. You don't just go hiring somebody. You don't just go buying equipment. You don't, because unless it relates to your goal, a real goal, okay? And then you understand what the inciting incident is, so you know what is the point of attack, right? If you think about a sword can penetrate a very narrow area, right? Because it focuses all of that force into that narrow area, and that's what you always want. This is the reason why the Allied forces were able to go into Normandy and then expand, because they chose a focused point and a beach in France to be able to go through the enemy lines, and then you expand. You don't attack the enemy all around. You choose a point. So the same thing is, the inciting incident is that point, is that point you have to hit again and again. You take all of that and you put it all in a sales funnel. Now, I've never, ever heard anybody talk about a sales funnel the way we talked about sales funnel. I mean, we really broke each step down into like this is like graduate level stuff, okay? So it's definitely not for everybody. Most people have never even thought of positioning, let alone be able to combine all these layers all the way to a sales funnel, because then once you have this, it really gives you an unfair advantage. It really focuses all your efforts into what's going to bring the most benefit for your organization. You might even not be selling something. You might be trying to get people's attention through an idea, through a project, through whatever that might be. We find that this system really positions you to win, because you can take into account all these different layers that are, all of them are needed. You need them. And I remember when I first started learning about this stuff through John, and how he used all these concepts to do the turnarounds that he did, and to do all the crazy stuff he's done. He's sold satellites to the government. He's worked with the NSA. He's pitched Compaq, HP, Apple, Microsoft. You name it. I mean, he's been in all these different places. And again, because he's understood, okay, this is how all this stuff works. I need to know, for example, where in the adoption curve this thing lives. And then I can go and attack that, because I have the right posture and I know where I fit, so I can hit my green field and not go into a crowded space. Now, somebody asked me the other day, what is the difference between a green field and a blue ocean? If you're familiar with the blue ocean strategy, which is a kind of a popular business book. And if you read the blue ocean strategy, they talk about adoption a little bit. They talk about positioning a little bit, but not much else. It's like they try to boil everything down. And for me, the green field is a more sophisticated thing, because you can, sometimes you don't have that big breakthrough. Sometimes you don't have that big moment where you go, okay, I'm in a different spot. I'm Cirque du Soleil, right? Which that's a big example in the blue ocean strategy. But sometimes you do. Sometimes you find that green field, and that's a little bit different concept, because you have to also understand what the adoption is to get there. But it's different, right? It's an altogether. So for example, you can have a green field, right? And not identify any of the other stuff. And so for me, this is the reason why this fits much better than the blue ocean strategy, is because greenfield is just part of it, right? Changing the angle a little bit, like Cirque du Soleil did. So mixing circus and theater for this brand new experience. Okay, maybe that's a green field, but you gotta understand what the adoption curve is as a separate thing, as a separate layer of it. So that is the difference between it. So this is a quick rundown of the position winning system, 7 aces to really improve really all areas of business. We apply a lot of this stuff to your personal self, because you have to position yourself first before you can position your company, before you can position a product, before you can position a service, because before you can do any of that, you got to be able to position yourself first, okay? So we work on a lot of these things as far as the person, because again, this is strategy. So strategy always, because strategy is up here, it also applies at all these different levels of analysis. But we're really talking business here. We're really talking, I get philosophical, and when people go to Las Vegas and hear me speak, I will be getting philosophical, no doubt about it. But this really applies to business. This is what we were trying to do, to really focus in on helping businesses not make the mistake of failing in the first 5 minutes and then having to wait 3 to 5 years of agonizing pain to realize it. Rather, know right away if your idea has even a chance of being successful. Know right away if the business that you're trying to invest money in, it's going to be, or has a chance of being successful, and know right away if it's a field that you shouldn't approach, if it's something that's just not going to take, and you can go devote your energy and your money and your time, mostly your time, because that's what you can't get back, to something else.